So this is what's going on. Being charged with a DUI, fired publicly, and a 20-year-old just broke up with me. Yeah, I'm losing at life. Like, I'm the Sacramento Kings of life right now. Somebody relocate me to Seattle. Get me the hell out of here. This girl broke up with me. She said, I swear to God, she said I was too immature for my age. Right? It's coming from a girl with cooties. I was upset when she's bringing it up. I was like upset. I didn't know. I panicked, so I tried to ground her. I said, you're dating me for another 3 months. Go to your room. My friends are all my ass, though. They're like, well, don't you think she's too young for you? And I'm like, no. I'll tell you why. This is how you gauge it. If you show up to take them out and their parents don't give you babysitting money, then it's fair game. I had some weird epiphany, though. I realized the year I lost my virginity was the year she was born. Then I started thinking, that was really selfish of me, because if I would have left it in, she could have had a playmate. It was really fun. It was really fun. Thank you. My friends were like, well, what do you have to talk to her about? What do you guys have in common? I'm like, are you kidding me? We have the most in-depth, insightful conversations about the Kardashians that will blow your mind away. I mean, this girl knows everything. The Kardashians have to keep up with her. That's how good she is. But it was weird, like, because we had a weird age difference and she didn't get a lot of, like, her idea of a classic film was Transformers 3. You know what I'm saying? You know what bothered me? She didn't know who Hall & Oates was. It drove me nuts. So I started fucking with her. I told her it was a cereal. I'm like, Hall & Oates by Kellogg's, you know. Get your day started right with Hall & Oates, you know. And then she pretended, she's like, oh yeah. You idiot.
Hey, today's Sit Down Zumock podcast is sponsored by Frizzon Media. Go to Frizzon Media for all your media needs. Video production, television and film, commercials, corporate and industrial videos, motion graphics, identity, branding, audio production, sound design, B-roll, and time lapses. You name the media, they'll do it the right way. That's frizzonmedia.com. That's 2 S's. Also, superdry.com. Unique urban clothing with incredible branding and unrivaled level of detailing. I wear Superdry. Go to superdry.com. They sell safely and securely to over 100 countries worldwide, offering great customer service and hassle-free return policy. Check them out. You want to advertise on this podcast? Well, hit me up at chadzumock3@gmail.com. That's right, Gmail. It's not Hotmail. We're still learning. So if you want to make magic happen, hit me up and we'll talk sponsorship. So let's do this. Holla at your boy.
Bunch of bullshit. 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 Bunch of bullshit.
Sit down, Zumock.
We're recording.
Oh, we're on?
All right. We're here, episode number 2 of the Sit Down Zumock podcast. I'm joined by comedian Ryan Dalton. Ryan, Mr. Show Business, as I like to call him.
Oh, I'm here. It's an honor to be 1/8 of the people in this bar. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's a big moment for me. Thank you for having me. I'm sad I couldn't be here for your number one broadcast of the podcast.
Right.
I'm following Joe Howard, which is literally the easiest thing in the world to
Sure.
do.
You know this is going to get back to him.
Oh, I don't care. Joe Howard, like when you booked Joe Howard, were you like, was anybody else with a voice booked? And here I am, and I'm excited to be here on the second, your second podcast.
Yes. The first one, we started off, it went well.
Yeah?
This one so far, not so good. We started off on a bad note.
Was it me? Is it me?
Yeah, I think it's you. It's the guest.
It's my vibe. I got a bad vibe.
Now, Ryan, you've been in comedy for a long time. I've known you for a better portion of my life, since the 7th grade.
That's right.
And isn't it funny now we're here at the Map Room on West 9th doing this podcast together? Would you have thought in the 7th grade we'd be here right now?
No, I wouldn't have thought that. I think it's funny that you're interviewing somebody who gave you a ride here. That's also funny. It's bizarre that this is some sort of interview format when I picked you up and like, so how's everything going? And that was like really the interview. But in 7th grade, I never thought I'd be seen in public with you again.
Sure.
And I realized that the goals that I wanted to achieve, I'm never going to get to achieve. And I'm pretty much stuck with you the rest of my life.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the route we had to go.
I mean, honestly, when two mediocre people get together, you form one bigger mediocre person.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we did it.
It's like a mediocre Voltron.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, just a Voltron that really doesn't fight crime. It just kind of is fifth in line for stuff.
I'm not going to lie, I'm having a difficult time interviewing you because we talk all the time. I know everything about you.
Yeah.
So you're not really interesting to me at all.
Nope, not really. It's kind of, I'm on a test pattern right now.
Now, you were on TBS's Sullivan and Son this year.
That's right.
You played, what was your character's name?
My character's name was Officer Dave. I played a police officer.
Yeah.
I channeled every great police officer actor, you know, and I became
Like Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, Starsky
T.J.
and
Hooker.
Hutch, yeah, T.J. Hooker and McGruff the crime dog.
Yeah.
And I delivered both of my lines, and I changed Hollywood. I did it all from living from Cleveland. Right now, I cannot stop the emails from coming in from many different Michael Bay projects that want me to play an officer with 3 lines. So things are going well.
Now, do you feel like you're typecasted?
Yes, I do. I mean, because I have a very Midwestern cop look. Once I take off this hat, I'm balding and I'm kind of
Well, there's a visual component to my podcast, so could you show...
Oh, wow, look at that.
Can you show them the...
Sure, I'm going bald. Everybody at home, this is what it looks like when you stand too close to a heat lamp.
What's that joke you have in your stand-up about going into stores with security cameras?
Oh, it's embarrassing because every time you go into a convenience store, there's a security camera right above the entrance, and it's hooked up to a monitor, and I forget every day since it's like on the back of my head that I'm going bald, so I look up at the monitor, I'm confused, and I go, who's this old guy following me? And it's no one, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I'm in total denial that I'm going bald. What's it like to have hair? That's the real question. What's it like that you wake up every day and go, oh man, I just got to put some more product in here, you know, spike it
Gel.
up, see what the kids like.
You know, my problem is my hair's too thick. That's my problem. I have to go to the
As
barber.
you were saying that, I was picturing me hitting you over the head with this microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not a problem.
When did you start going bald?
I think I started going bald 3 years after I graduated college.
Yeah.
So that was 1972. No, I graduated in 1998, so about 3 years I started to notice a bald patch. But you know how moms are? They're like, you're not going bald, your scalp's just shaped weird. Oh, like, it's shaped without hair?
Yeah.
Oh, really? No. I'm going bald, it's happening. And I don't know, is it too late for Propecia? That's the real question.
What does your wife think of you going bald?
Well, I don't know what she thinks, but I recently bought new clothes, and she would go in the dressing room with me, and when I caught her disgust from the awful shape of my body,
yeah.
I caught her looking in the reverse mirror that showed the bald spot, and I swore I saw her eyes just sink in her head. She was embarrassed.
Yeah, you have an interesting physique.
Yeah, I have the body of a thumb. That's what it is. It's gross. It's a body of a scallop or melting snowman.
It's like a mentally challenged kid got out of control with Play-Doh.
It's disgusting. I look like Antoine Walker if I was an NBA player. That's what I'd look like. Gross.
Oh, hey, it's Maz Jobrani, everybody.
How are you?
Come on
Good to
over,
see you.
buddy. Let's talk. This guy's great. Now, you guys might know Maz Jobrani from his Showtime special, Brown and Friendly. He's been on The Tonight Show. He's been on He's been on The West Wing. He was on The West Wing. I think that's how's it going? I've never met Maz Jobrani. It's good to meet you. Do you know comedian Ryan Dalton?
Hey, I'm Ryan. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. How you doing?
I've never met you, but I've seen you perform stand-up comedy countless times at the Laugh Factory Comedy Store. I have a million mutual friends. Sam Tripoli, yes. Sebastian Maniscalco.
Sebastian, yes.
Brett
I didn't know this
Burns.
is a big operation. I didn't know you guys. I thought this was going to be in like in a little den in your house.
No.
No.
This is all out.
This is big time.
Yeah.
This is like a venue and staff and people ignoring you over there. This is amazing. What's up? Yeah, it's a podcast. Woo! Big time, baby.
So you go from a Showtime special to a dive bar in Cleveland, Ohio. What are your thoughts?
I'm a comedian, man. I'm used to this. This is, you guys are, actually, I have my own podcast with Al Madrigal and Chris Spencer.
Al's great.
Yeah, we call it Minivan Men. And we actually tape it in my back office in my house. So this is, you guys are more big time than I'm used to.
Really?
I'm serious. You just need an audience, and then we
Yeah,
have
audience
something
would
going.
be pretty cool.
You got a couple people that are right there, probably on staff, maybe. They didn't come for this. Did you come for this? You didn't come for this. They brought you. You're somehow related to them, aren't you? Yeah, there's some. Yeah, exactly. He's got a crew pass. Like you needed a pass to get in here. Look at this guy. Like there was so much security coming in. He had a crew pass. How'd he get past you? Hey, this guy, the crew pass, right? Big time. I'm okay. Now I'm all right now, man. I'm recovering from last night.
What is that there? What do you have?
This is, I don't know how you pronounce this. Is it Izzy or Ize or Izzy? I-Z-Z-E. I'm going with Izzy. Are there any connoisseurs of this drink here amongst the two people, four people?
No, I would call that expensive. I usually go with water.
No, well, I go with water, but you know where I was? I went to Chipotle.
Chipotle?
Chipotle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole place, you can't pronounce anything there. Is it Chipotle? Is it Izzy? I don't know. But I love the Chipotle.
It's awesome.
And it's amazing. And the, did you know it was owned by McDonald's, Chipotle?
Yes, I did. I did know that.
And the stock is like $350 a share for Chipotle.
It's really good.
I honestly thought, I thought for a second there, I was like, because somebody was telling me about this, like this, because it's good, it's really good, it's always packed.
Yeah.
And I don't, you talk to guys that buy stocks, and they tell you, it's not just about, how many people you see in there. There's all kinds of other things you got to look at, like how much of their money is cash, how much is loans. I don't know all that crap. I just went in there, I was like, this looks like a good stock to buy. And somebody was like, well, dude, it's like $300 a stock. I was like, really? Burritos? $300 a stock? It sounded like a lot. So I went on, I got my little phone, I got the little stock page.
Yeah.
And you go there, and some guy was saying how it's overvalued. Don't buy the Chipotle. It's definitely, Apple is almost at $450 now, which means you could buy, for $100 more, you could buy Apple stock. I feel better about Apple than Chipotle.
I totally agree with you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will defend what you're saying about Chipotle. I went to Mexico on vacation for 2 weeks, and I got to tell you, Chipotle is still better.
Chipotle,
it's better than all of Mexico.
It's delicious, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. The problem is, see, the iPhone, you can have maybe 1 billion people buying iPhones. That's a good company to invest in. Because they could have
Without a
1 billion. Now, you think 1 billion people are going to eat a burrito? 1 billion burritos from Chipotle?
No.
That's
No,
a
I
lot
know.
of burritos. That's
Right.
like at least a year's worth of burritos.
And there's a lot of hacky Chipotle-like restaurants coming out,
A
too.
lot. And there's competition.
Yeah.
Apple, on the other hand, they got competition, but they just swat that shit
Oh, yeah,
away.
they're like, whatever, come out with your tablet. It doesn't
And
matter. It sucks.
all Apple does, they take their iPhone and they make it bigger, and they go, here's a new product, and Apple people go and buy it.
They stand in line.
Chipotle can't do that. They can't be like, oh, here's a bigger burrito. I mean, they already have it. They have the grande. What are you going to come out with, a super grande? The Chipotle touch? You can't come out with a Chipotle touch.
Like every year they come out with a new burrito.
I'm just saying, gentlemen.
You think people will wait in line like they do for the iPhone for the new burrito?
Oh, no, it's not going to happen. Don't get the Chipotle. Look, man, even they got Izzy. It's limited. The Chipotle stock is limited. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I'm not even an expert on stocks, but I can tell you that right now.
Did you go to Berkeley? You're wearing a Berkeley
I did go to
sweatshirt.
UC Berkeley, baby.
Yeah.
I went there. Representing. Always a very, very disappointing school when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
Always like we're ranked in everything, and then it just falls apart.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And when I was there, our football team, we had a thing. We always say fourth quarter. And you can only say fourth quarter for so long. You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
When you're down like 45-7, and it's fourth quarter, and in your mind you fool yourself. You're like, we could come back and make and get whatever that number is, 39 points in the fourth quarter. That's not going to happen.
What were like the big schools that like UC Berkeley would go up against in the tune-up game? They
Well,
always used
our big rival is Stanford.
Oh,
Stanford's the big rival.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Stanford's got a great football team.
Yeah.
Okay. And I always hated Stanford. Bunch of punks. So I
Bunch
went
of
to-
rich kids.
Rich kids with like good ideas.
Right.
Who's just gonna get richer. I mean, come on. Why does the rich keep getting richer? Why don't some of the poor people come up with the good Like the Google guys, weren't they rich before? I don't know. I'm making shit up now. I hate those Google guys. I really don't care about them. I mean, if they're here, chances are the Google guys are not here.
Yeah, I think
I'm
you're
just
safe.
guessing. There's chances are very low that the Google guys are here, right? No offense to anybody who might be a tech guy here, but I'm just guessing the Google guys, they're in Silicon Valley right now. They got shit to do.
They're at the Haha Cafe.
Haha Cafe in Los Angeles, North Hollywood. No, so I hated the Stanford. What the? Oh wow, the whole place is falling apart. Your sign. Are these sponsors over here?
Oh yeah,
Frizon? Is that a
Frizon
hair?
Media. This is the company that's putting on the podcast.
Well, your
right
whole
now.
thing just fell apart.
The
It's
whole
falling on me.
operation's gone to
I could
shit.
have a. Can I wear it? I could have a lawsuit on you guys. I had a. This is amazing, guys.
I learned that duct tape and brick don't mix. That's what I learned from today's
I just
podcast
hope
so far.
I hope this podcast becomes the biggest podcast in the world, and then you guys can go on, like the Tonight Show and be like, we used to do it, and
Yeah.
Leno will be like, oh, you guys used to do it in a bar,
Yeah.
where your signs would come off.
A lot of comics do podcasts now, and I was real hesitant. And the reason why I started doing it is I got fired from the radio, and I said, you know what? I have a non-compete clause for 8 months. I was like, I'm going to jump in the world of podcasting. When did you start doing your podcast?
You know, it is. It's like I think I did mine. I know I did mine 2 years ago. I did mine 2 years ago, January 17th. I'll tell you that right now of 2011. I know why. I'll tell you why.
Sure.
We were about to start. I was going to go do it. The guys were at this back then we had like a little studio space. So we're going backwards. Now we're in my back garage. But anyway, getting ready to go, and my wife, the nerve of this lady, she goes into labor.
Oh,
Yeah, I had to call the guys. I'm like, guys, I'm not going to make the first podcast. I got to go. My baby's coming. So I went and
what
delivered
a
a baby.
blocker.
It's always something with them, right?
Always
something.
I'm like, I got a podcast. Woman, can't you just hold the, do they hold their breath? How do they hold the baby in? How would you hold the baby in?
I always imagine it was kind of like when you got to take a dump. You got to think of other
Exactly.
things.
It's
Yeah.
got to be like that. Just kind of run around a little bit.
It's kind of the same, right?
It's got to be. You know, but I wonder if they have like, you know how like you think it's a dump, but then it's just air?
Yeah.
Wonder if like women think, oh, it's a baby, and then it's just a big fart.
They must, because they got that I didn't know I was pregnant show TV, that TV show, and that gamble they sometimes
yeah,
take when
that's
they take
weird.
a dump. They're like, it's a huge dump and not a creature coming out of me.
How do you not know you're pregnant?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny if like you thought you were pregnant for 9 months and then like you're like, oh, we're having a baby, and then your wife just farts and her stomach goes in and you're like, oh shit, it was the Chipotle total. All this
Chipotle.
time.
That's a callback, kids.
Well,
Call back.
shockingly enough, the amount of women on that show are usually overweight. I know it's a shocker to think that. Like, oh my God, I was pregnant this whole time. I thought I was full.
I'm telling you, man. That's one reason to lose weight, so you can tell if you're pregnant.
Yeah, that is an incentive.
You know what I'm saying? Like people like Callista Flockhart know when she's pregnant.
You can see the baby's face in her tummy.
She's just sitting right there. You can tell when she ate Chipotle total. You see the burrito right there. Everything she does, that girl.
Maz, how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
A
How do you
boy,
have- a boy and a girl?
4-year-old boy, 2-year-old girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you balance being married with children and going on the road as a stand-up comedian?
Very easy. As a Middle Eastern male, I tell the woman, you stay home. You take care of babies. You raise children. I'll be back. No, man, it's tough. It's tough. You know what? Actually, I heard Mark McGuire talking about this because he was talking. He's in his second marriage, and he said he's spending a lot of time with his kids now. Because when he was on the A's, when he was younger, he said that he was so focused on his career. He said he feels like he missed out on his kids' youth. And I feel a lot of times, I feel like, I mean, anyone who's got kids knows what I'm talking about. You leave for like a weekend, you come back. There we go. We got caller number 1.
Yeah, can we put the caller through?
Put the caller through. That's probably one of the.
Got a question for Maz Jobrani?
Maybe it's Mark McGuire. He was so you leave for a weekend, you come back, and they're like, they're speaking in full sentences.
Yeah.
You feel like you're missing out on stuff. And my wife is Indian, so my kids are half Indian. So like I leave for a week, I come back, and they're designing websites. That's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. That's a joke. You can laugh. Thank you. I permit it. It's all right. So anyway, that one was written, ladies and gentlemen. That one has been done before.
Well, it worked. That's a good one.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
Yeah. And so you, one of the questions I wanted to ask, you were in the movie, what is it, Friday After Next?
Yes, the third Friday movie, Ice Cube's third Friday movie, Friday After Next.
Yeah. Now let me ask you something. Growing up a hip hop fan, how do you? When I first heard Straight Outta Compton, I was terrified.
Yes.
And this guy was one of the baddest rappers of all time.
Yes.
When you go head to head with Ice Cube, are you scared?
Yeah, we were doing a lot of, he and I were doing a lot of rap battles on the set.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. I was like, straight out of Tehran. I'm a Persian with an attitude. Don't you know I had a lot of latitude. I'm just kidding. That's the most I've ever rhymed in my life. Listen, it was cool, man. It was a great experience. First of all, it was cool to just be on set with these guys. And on the third Friday, the new guys it was me, Terry Crews, and Cat Williams.
Okay.
We were the new guys. And Cat Williams was hilarious. Terry Crews, super nice, funny guy, big guy. And it was just so much fun because they would let us improvise a lot. So, Mike Epps would improvise, you'd improvise off of that. And it was kind of funny because, like you're saying, Ice Cube was known as this big rapper.
Oh, yeah.
And we filmed this, I think, in 2001. So, now he's kind of like, are we there yet, dad, producer guy. But
Yeah, how
back
do you
then,
go from Straight Outta Compton to I'm taking my kids to school?
straight out of Bel Air. Yeah, I mean, that's just part of, I think he's always been that guy. It's just that he was able to get into NWA at a young age, and they had a really good, I've read about it a few times. Like, they weren't like going around shooting people. They were singing about people shooting people. Although Eazy-E, I guess, had been a drug dealer. But anyway, the point is that we were shooting in Long Beach, like in this little mini mall, and it was closed off. And it was kind of funny because I'm new to this whole thing, in terms of working with these guys. And I'd be like, we'd be between takes, and I'd be on the side, just like at craft services, like eating, and somebody would walk up, like from the other side, like from the street, and I'm on the side where like we're blocked off, and he'd come over and be like, "Hey man, are you in this movie?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Listen, man, he's a CD. Can you get this to Cube for me? I got this song he's got to hear." I'd be like, "No, man, I can't get this to Mr. Cube. I don't even know how I'm supposed to address him." Mr. Cube, just 1 second if I could. Yes, this CD was handed to me to pass to you. So people were trying to constantly
Speaking of which, here's my CD. Can you get this to Sirius XM Radio?
I will definitely get this done. Adventures in Argyle. That's nice. I like it. I like it.
So I guarantee, like, Ice Cubes gets 1 million demos a day from people.
Can you imagine what it's got to be like? Like you might get. Look, I as a comedian, I've been doing this about 15 years. And people, I got a little bit of fan base going. And in the Middle Eastern community in particular, like Sam Tripoli always says, like whenever I do shows, I get a pretty diverse crowd, but the Persians show up. And he goes, "You're like the Persian Elvis, otherwise known as Pelvis." And I am Pelvis. No, but it's crazy because then what happens is I'll get email, like you just said, like Cube. I mean, Cube's got to be getting all kinds of, like I'll get emails from people with all kinds of wacky ideas.
Sure.
Like, "Hey, I got this movie. Would you read it?"
Yeah.
And you'd want to be nice, and you're like, okay, at first you want to be nice.
Then you'll get an email like, "Hey, can you come on my podcast in Cleveland?"
Can you come on my podcast in Cleveland? And you got to investigate. You got to look at, I've been looking at your records and stuff. I mean, your credit's kind of bad, but I still came. It's all right.
Maz, as a member of the Persian community,
Yes.
As a married man, I'm forced to watch a lot of awful television with my wife. So I need to ask you,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on this show on Bravo, The Shaws of Sunset?
Shaws of Sunset. Good question, Ryan. Good question. First of all, I got to tell you something, Ryan. Because I'm of Middle Eastern descent, most people ask me everything related to the Middle East. Doesn't matter what it is, even if it's not Middle East. People ask me about baklava. And baklava, I think, is Greek. But that's okay. I'm okay. I'm good with it because I have answers for you people. I can tell you about baklava. I can tell you about pierogies, which are, I think, Polish. I'm okay.
Yeah, they are.
Let's just, I just got to tell you, I'm the lazy man's Wikipedia. Because the fact is, I'm going to make up some shit. But you don't have to Google it. You don't have to go online and look in. I'll tell you. I'll give you the history of all this stuff. So good question. Shaws of Sunset, reality show on Bravo. Here's my take on it. First of all, a lot of Persians were upset when they first heard it was coming out because they thought it was going to be like the Jersey Shore with Persians. And a lot of Persians are very like proud. We are lawyers, we are doctors. They should do a show about us as lawyers and doctors.
Right.
Then you ask the guy, you're like, well, what do you do? He's like, I do import-export, but that's different. We are lawyers and doctors. And here's my take is I saw it, and I actually think it's okay, because like my whole point is this. We used to be known as terrorists. Now we're known as drunks. It's all right. That's progress, because that's all they're doing on that show is getting drunk.
Oh, it's wasted.
You know, if Americans are watching, they're like, shit, they're just like us. They just drink a lot. This is fantastic. They're not terrorists. They're drunks. So I think there's progress for the Iranian community. I really do.
I have a question. You being a Persian,
Yes.
I bet you've never gotten this one. What are your thoughts on Jamie Farr in the Cannonball Run series playing the Sheik?
Exactly. That's a good question right there. Jamie Farr, I believe, was of like Lebanese or Syrian or some Arab descent. This is my Wikipedia talking here.
That's great.
I just made, I just threw in a few different countries, and he's from one of those places. I think. If you put "I think," you can't quote me. If Jamie Farr or I think he's passed away again. I think. So his estate couldn't sue me and say you just went, on the show and you lied about what he. So he was something from that part of the world. So I think what happened was probably whoever the casting was like, oh hey Jamie, you're from that part of the world. Put on a turban, And Jamie was like, how much does it pay? And they said, it'll pay, whatever, several thousands of dollars. He said, screw it, I'll do it. Because that's how it goes. If you're of Middle Eastern descent in Hollywood, that's how the casting usually goes. When you show up and they go, oh, you're of Middle Eastern descent, they go, great. Can you say, I will kill you in the name of Allah? And those are the types of parts you get. And then I've had before where I go, well, can I play the doctor in this film? And they go, cool. And then you can hijack the hospital. And so all roads lead to Al-Qaeda. That's what I'm trying to say. That's a saying we have in my house, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to use it. All roads lead to Al-Qaeda.
So we're probably never going to see Maz Jobrani like in a Twilight film or something.
Hey, take it easy. There might be terrorist vampires. You never know. You never know. Let's not jump to any conclusions. If you see a vampire wearing a turban, there he is. Maz Jobrani. Terrorist vampire.
I first came to know you on a little social website called MySpace.
Yes.
And then you did something amazing. You got with a couple guys.
Yes.
And you did the Axis of Evil comedy tour, which I loved because to me, at least from outside looking in, it was like, you know what? We're gonna get looked at like this.
Yeah.
We're gonna be. You're gonna be perceiving us because we're a certain way. And you know what? Let's take that negative energy and turn it into something positive.
Or you did that out of spite because you didn't go on the Vince Vaughn Wild West tour, right? Am I right?
That's exactly why I did it. No, no. It's funny you ask about that because it was funny because Axis of Evil. This is the history of Axis of Evil. What happened was in the year 2000, Mitzi Shore, owner of the Comedy Store, Pauly Shore's mother, she watched a lot of news and she's Jewish. And there was an uprising in Israel with the Palestinians against the Israelis. There was the latest intifada. Intifada, folks. Intifada. Look it up. I'm not here to give you the definitions, just my Wikipedia. Intifada is an uprising. Anyway, so what happened was there was the latest uprising, and so Mitzi Shore came out and she said, I feel like there's going to be a need for a positive voice of Middle Easterners in the world. This is 2000. So she goes, I want to do a show.
That's great foresight.
Yeah, so because she used to do she would take her comedians from the club and do like Black Comedy Night, Ladies of Comedy.
Was Mitzi coherent at the time?
Mitzi was coherent. She was
Okay.
still coherent. So she wanted to do a Middle Eastern night. She wanted to call it the Arabian Nights. And what it was I was the only Middle Easterner on the at the club at the time. So they were asking me, they go, do you know any of the Middle Easterners? And I'd seen Aaron Cater perform one time who was half Palestinian. Mitzi saw Ahmed do a show in the main room, and so she brought him on. And anyone who was remotely of any Middle Eastern descent, to the point where I even called Sam Tripoli up, who is half Armenian.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, they don't know what it means. Just come in, dude. And so I got him to become a regular from that. He became a regular at the Comedy Store because he kept auditioning for her, and she wouldn't pass him. But when she was looking for Middle Easterners, and we were able to tell them that this Armenian guy can kind of fit the mold, and he had one joke about being hairy, it got him in. And so we had anyone who was brown that wasn't Mexican or black was on our show. We had Armenians, Iranians, Arabs, an Indian kid. There was this Indian guy. It was this mishmash.
Yeah.
And we toured as the Arabian Nights for a while, but the problem was that Iranians aren't Arabs. We're Persian. We're ethnically actually white. Aryan. The word Iran comes from the word Aryan, not like Sikhail, but like white people. The Caucasus Mountains. Anyway, more Wikipedia shit, all vaguely put out there. you just throw out big words, Aryan, Caucasian, Caucasus Mountains, and people are like, ooh, this guy knows his shit. I don't know anything. I just throw out Caucasus Mountains once in a while. And once you get past the word cock and the caucus, you think this guy's smart. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that so Persians would come up after the show and be like, we really enjoyed the show. It was great. By the way, we are not Arabs. I was like, I know that's the name that Mitzi Shore gave it, Arabian Nights. We got to move on. So we did it for a while, and then this whole Axis of Evil term came out. And right off the bat,
That was from George Bush, right?
George W. Bush was there at his speech, and he goes, "There's an axis of evil," and I'm listening to
You're
this.
like, ding, 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 ding.
Well, no, before the ding, 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 I'm listening to it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, there's an axis of evil. I'm with you. And the hijackers, the 19 hijackers, were Saudis and Egyptians. But Bush starts going down the list. He's like, there's an axis of evil. I'm like, yes, there is. And he's like, it's North Korea. I'm like, okay, why not? Throw North Korea in there. then he goes, it's Iraq. I'm like, okay, Iraq, that's fine. Then he goes, it's Iran. I'm like, what the hell? How did we get in this? There was Saudi and Egypt was not, Saudi Arabia and Egypt weren't mentioned. The hijackers were something else, but somehow 3 other countries ended up in the, so anyway, not that they should have been an axis of evil, but I'm just, it was shocked me. And then, we got we were like, this is a stupid term. Because what it was, here's the thing. I know that he was differentiating and saying it's these regimes, it's the governments. But people, I think, hear this and they go, well, shit, then Iran's a bad place and we should bomb them, as well as Iraq. And while we're at it, let's just bomb North Korea. I mean, that's how people think. So we started thinking about that, like, what a horrible, it's a stupid term. And at a certain point, I think we were joking around. Somebody just was like, "Oh, look, we're the Axis of Evil comedians or something." And we're like, "Ooh, that's a good title."
Yeah.
And in essence, what we did was by putting the comedy tour at the end of it, I think that it helped lampoon the whole thing. And at the time, it was an edgy name to this tour because some people were like, "Oh, I don't know, man, that's not a good idea. It's going to attract the wrong kind of attention, But we were like, "No, we want to push this." Because I go, "Look, if people," that was they laughed at that. That was weird timing. If people, apparently the podcast over there is a lot funnier than this podcast.
Russell Peters is doing his
Russell
podcast
Peters over there, right there, and here we are. We said, if people get the joke, Axis of Evil Comedy Tour, if they get the flavor of what we're talking about, they're going to come watch it. And if there's some people that like hate us for being Middle Easterners, they're going to hate us anyway. Even if we called it like the George Bush is Great Tour, they'd be like, God damn it, how dare they use George Bush's name?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we did it, and it was great, man. It was a cool tour.
You went overseas. Like you performed in front of princes. And
Kings.
Kings.
This is what happened. We did the
So
Axis of Evil
awesome.
Comedy Tour, came out on Comedy Central. If you would have asked me when we first did the tour, where else do you think you'll perform outside of the country? I would have told you U.S., Canada, Canada, England, Australia, like all the English-speaking countries. Well, about a year later, we get a call from some guys out of Jordan in the Middle East. And the guy goes, hey, we would like to have you come do your show here in Jordan. I was like, well, bro, the show's in English. And he's like, yes, I'm speaking English to you right now, you idiot. I was like, that's a good point. And I went out there and I realized, like, all these countries in the Middle East, they speak English very well. They know about our culture. Like the rest of the world knows a lot more about America than America knows about the rest of the world.
Right.
It's crazy.
Sadly.
Yeah, it's sad. Like you could go to Saudi Arabia. I've done shows in Saudi. You could go to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and do a joke about Lindsay Lohan, and they'd be like, "Oh, that Lindsay, always in the rehab." They know her. Meanwhile, we don't even know. We don't even know that there's different countries over there. I've talked to people that are like, we should just bomb the whole goddamn area. And I'm like, it's different countries. And just bomb the whole goddamn... People don't know. So that's the thing. So it was great. We went to the Middle East and we did all these shows. We did a 5-country tour with the Axis of Evil in end of 2007. And it was amazing. We were like rock stars. Like we showed up. Listen, before that, the American comedians that would go to the Middle East would only go to perform for the troops. Right. We were the first group of Middle Eastern comics to come, American comics to go to the Middle East and perform for the people of the Middle East. And they were so excited. We were having like press conferences. We were like the Beatles.
Really?
It was like press conferences and like we would like put one show up and like it would sell out in like minutes and then the second show, third show. It was amazing. And I would say like, I felt like I was like the Chris Rock of the Middle East because I was like, Chris Rock ain't going to the Middle East, so I'm the best I could do, you know? But it was cool. And then at one point we had the King of Jordan King of Jordan's coming to our show. This was crazy,
That
man.
is surreal.
This was crazy because what happened was
I had the mayor of Cleveland coming to one of my shows.
Mayor of Cleveland. That's right.
It's kinda-
He came to buy some crack at the show,
Yeah.
and that happens a lot.
That didn't happen. He's making that up.
Yeah. No, for us it was crazy because I wasn't used to that at all, and we got. This is what happened. Once it came out, we all of us. There was 4 of us on the tour. It was me, Ahmed, Aaron Cater. We were the 3 founders, and then there was Dino Bidala out of New York. We put him on there. So we all got these emails from like His Royal Highness's secretary out of Jordan, and it said,
What's their email address? Like, what's it like? Jordan.com or like
king.com. No, it was an email going like, can I please have your
the king at Yahoo?
Yeah, the king at AOL. No, he said, they said, can I please have your addresses? The king of Jordan would like your address. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, we pissed somebody off. They're coming to get us.
Yeah.
And we all call each other. We're like, dude, I just got this email from the king of Jordan. Me too. What the hell? And we're like, okay, Ahmed had a P.O. box. I go, listen, you give them that address. That way, if they want to kill somebody,
A bomb.
they'll kill the P.O. box guy, the poor guy at the mailbox place. Can I help you? Oh, shit. So he gave them the address, and these letters come from the King of Jordan saying, hey, I saw your stuff. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Now, let me tell you about the King of Jordan. This guy was educated in the West in England. He's a big fan of like film and television. If you go to YouTube or go to Google right now and put King of Jordan Star Trek, he played an extra in a Star Trek episode. Yeah, that's how much he likes. I swear to God, before he was the king, there's this one episode, and it just shows he's like standing in the background, and he doesn't say anything. Somebody just does something, and the King of Jordan walks by. I'm like, oh shit, that's the King of Jordan. So he's a big fan of stuff like that. So somehow he had gotten a hold of our DVD. He told us he was on it. He rides Harleys. This dude's like totally like cool hip dude. He was doing a Harley ride with a bunch of guys from San Francisco down to L.A., and one of the guys gave him the DVD, and he watched it and he liked it. So we get this letter saying, I appreciate what you guys are doing. Great. Then we realize we're going to Jordan. So then we get information from like one of his protocol people that the king might be coming to your show. We're like, great. And then we're staying in touch. And then like the night before the show, we get an email. Now we're filming all behind the scenes of this whole tour. So we get an email going, listen, there's a special guest coming tomorrow. We can't tell you who it is, but no filming is allowed. So we knew it was him. They
Right.
can't, for security reasons, they can't say the king is some special guest. You know what I'm saying? In case some shit's gonna go down, then they could be like, whatever. It wasn't the king. It was Celine Dion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which would have been weird in Jordan for Celine Dion to show up. Here, near, far, wherever you are, bitch. You're supposed to be in Canada. Anyway. So we get this call. So now here's the thing. We've been doing this tour. I was exhausted. I was always closing out the show. And you guys know when you close the show of like a long show, you tend to sit around for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So I was just like sick of sitting around, and our hotel was connected to the venue of where the show was. And so, and the night before, when I would look out my window of the hotel, there was the road that would lead up to the valet parking for our show, and there was like jam-packed cars, so I saw the valet parkers the night before. Well, this night I look out, and that road is empty except for soldiers that are like, they've blocked off the road. So
Oh,
people
wow.
people have to park somewhere else and like walk. So I'm like, oh shit.
It's like your show at Hilarities tonight.
Exactly, like hilarities. Exactly. I'm like, oh shit, this is real. And I'm sitting there, and again, I'm trying to be cool the whole time. I'm like, you know what? Even though the king's coming, I don't want to go sit there and wait for a long time. So I'm gonna wait to once the
comic.
yeah.
Dude, I gotta wait around.
Yeah, come on,
man,
come on. And so, is the king going on? He's gonna do 5. Really? The king's gonna do 5 minutes? Oh, that's
That's
bullshit.
gonna be a tight 7 or 8.
I mean, 20 minutes later, give him the light. Would you give him the light? Let's
go.
Come on.
Jeez.
What does he own the country?
Hold up.
He comes off stage. Listen, bro, that wasn't cool what you did. All right, bro. Listen, bro. Listen, I'm just telling you, a lot of comics don't appreciate that, bro. When you see the light, you gotta go. And the king's like, I didn't see the light. That's bullshit, king. You know you saw the light, okay? I've never worked this room before. So I'm sitting there, man, and I'm like, man, I'm just gonna wait. Once the show starts, I'll go down. So I'm chilling, waiting. Suddenly, I hear whoop, 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 whoop. I look out, and that street, SUVs, motorcade just coming through. And I'm like, holy shit, I start getting chills. Before the SUV stopped, doors open, people running out. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is the real deal. Like, this shit's going down. I felt like I was like, whatever, it's like in like the TV show 24, and I'm not the bad guy. And and I woke up and it was a fantasy. No, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, this is, so I got excited. I'm like, I'm not waiting, I'm going. So I start dressing up, I get down. So I go down to the street now. By now the king has been whisked off. I don't know where he is. And I'm out in the street and there's just a bunch of soldiers. And the soldiers don't speak a lot of English.
Right.
So I'm out there and I'm like, all right, I'm this dude walking in this area. There's no one else around but me. And I'm like, they could think I'm the guy that's here to put the hit on the king. Like, they don't know I'm the comedian. You know what I'm saying? They don't have like the flyer.
Right.
So I walk around the streets, like outside the hotel with my hands up, like as if like I got nothing. And I'm like, and I know a few words in Arabic, like salam alaikum is hello, alaikum salam, that's the response. That's all I know. So I'm like, salam alaikum, and they're like, alaikum salam, and they're looking at me. I'm like, comedian. They're like, all right, get the fuck out of here. So they basically tell me to go to the back. I go to the back, some soldier there, he frisks me, make sure I don't have any weapons. Great, come on in. Now I'm in the green room, me and Aaron Cater in the green room. Now Ahmed had been the host of the shows. And the night before, which was the first night we'd done a show in Jordan, they had this guy come out, this like dude who like plays the violin to like rock and roll and like, Western music. Like this guy's like very Westernized. So this dude would come out and he did like a half an hour of playing the violin to these different songs. So before our show, we had a half an hour of this guy playing songs. Then they would take an intermission where the people would go and smoke. Smoking, by the way, like we think like people are afraid that America's going to go to war with countries in the Middle East. No, that's not how we're going to kill them. We're killing them with cigarettes. They love their cigarettes.
Yeah.
So they had to get their cigarette breaks. So basically, before our show started the night before, we had about 45 minutes before the show even started. So we're in the back in the green room, me and Aaron Cater, we're waiting, and Ahmed knows that he's got 45 minutes extra before coming down because they got the violinist and then we got smoking. And we're sitting there and the promoter comes back all nervous, sweating. He's like, "What is Ahmed?" And we're like, "Well, he's upstairs getting ready, chill." He's like, "No." He's like, we got to get started. I'm like, well, you got the violinist, then you got the thing. He's like, no. He's like, tonight there's no violin. He's like, tonight when the king sits, the show starts. I'm like, what kind of rule is that? No one told me that's the rule. No one told me the king sits, the show starts. That's not in my handbook. And they're like, no, we have to get Ahmed. So now we all get on our phones, and this is 07, so it wasn't the iPhone. It was the Razor or whatever you had.
Yeah.
We get on our phones, and we're trying to text Ahmed. Well, all the texting in the building has been cut off because they don't want anyone detonating a bomb with a cell phone. Oh, this is the kind of show we're at, people.
Smart.
This is the kind of show we're at. You can't even text. You couldn't tweet and be like, I'm in the back, in the green room, the king's in the front. You couldn't do that shit.
Wow.
They don't want. So we're sitting there, we're trying to text them. We're like, shit. Now it's a race between the king sitting and Ahmed showing up. And we're like, come on, Ahmed. So me and Aaron are like, we're sitting there, we're trying to, improvise. We're like, okay, listen, if he doesn't arrive, you go on, you do some time, and then we'll, And as we're doing this, we hear like Ahmed kind of strolling in. Hey, what's up, guys? What's going on? We're like, hurry up.
Totally.
Get in there, man.
Hey, man,
And,
what's up?
Yeah, and so he shows up, and they're like, get on stage, and he gets on stage. And it was an amazing show because it was like the king, the queen, like all of his relatives were there. It was and it was funny because we would when like back then I had jokes about the Bush administration. I had some jokes about Iran and their leadership. And when I'm on stage doing those jokes, like I would look at him like with the punchline to be like, dude, you can do something about this shit I'm talking about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a joke, but you can do something about this.
But there's suggestions.
There's just suggestions. So it was pretty amazing. And then he invited us to the palace. We went and saw him in the palace.
Wow.
And he was very nice and
By the
complimentary.
way, this whole time I'm visualizing coming to America right now. I don't know why.
When the king sits, the show starts.
Like I'm picturing Prince Akeem and the whole James Earl Jones.
Yeah. And several checkpoints as you go to see the king. Like you got to stop and they look at whatever you have and they frisk you and this and that and then you do that and then the flash forward to like 6 months later, I'm in California and I get an email. The king would like your phone number. And I'm like, shit, I must have pissed him off.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what I did. I either pissed him off or he wants me to do a show for his like son's birthday.
Yeah.
So I send my email to this email, my phone number to the email address, and then it comes back with, the king will call you tomorrow. I'm like, wow. Then I get a call and I'm sorry, I get an email going, the king will call you in 5 minutes. It's like the countdown to the king. So I tell my wife, I tell her, she's at work, I go, listen, don't call me. The king of Jordan is calling me in 5 minutes. So I'm sitting there looking at my phone, waiting. And finally the phone rings, and I pick it up, and they go, hold for the king of Jordan.
Is there like hold music?
Yeah, da, 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 yeah. La, 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 la. So then he comes on, and he goes, hello, Miles, how are you? He's got a British accent. I'm like, fine, sir, I'm great. And he goes, how are the boys? Meaning Ahmed and Aaron. They're great, sir. How can I help you? What's going on? He's like, nothing, I was just checking in. I'm like, checking in? That's it, Miles. I was like, the king of Jordan just checked in with me. I call my wife. I'm like, I just got checked in by the king of Jordan. I better get laid tonight.
So you just called to shoot the shit.
You just called to shoot the shit.
What's up, man?
Yeah, and I'm trying to come up with stuff to talk about. Well, anyway, things are good on my side, King. Have you seen the Shots of Sunset? What do you think of those? It wasn't even out then. It wasn't even out. But
that's an amazing story.
Pretty crazy.
Wow.
The king of Jordan. The king and I, baby.
That's cool.
So essentially, you brought comedy to a place that probably had never had comedy before.
Well, listen, man, the Middle East had like these like fledgling, like there was a couple of stand-ups here and there, like young guys trying to do stand-up. But the problem is, and I read this in a
some open mics in the Middle East.
Open mics in the Middle East. Yeah. No, the problem is, like, I read this some interview or something that Chris Rock did one time, and somebody said, if I want to be a comedian, what's your first suggestion? And he goes, move to New York or L.A. And the only reason being, there's so many places you can get up. And so in the Middle East, you can imagine, like, there's not that many places. Like, so these guys are getting up, like back then in 2007, there was one guy out of Lebanon who was, like, putting on, like, a show once a month or something.
Right.
But when we showed up and we started doing these shows, every city we go to, we'd have, like, a little audition and get these, like, young kids to come up and do stuff with us. And it was amazing. Ever since 2007, there's been this, like, launch of stand-ups in the region. And now every time you go back, all these young guys who started with us are doing their own shows. They still, unfortunately, don't have a lot of places to perform, so they're only performing a few times a year and stuff. But it's kind of funny because originally when we went there, like, a lot of these young guys were like, "Oh my God, I'm a big fan. This is great. I can't believe I'm on stage with you."
Yeah.
But now, because it's like like big fish in a small pond, like some of these guys had like some YouTube videos or something that went viral. So now they got a following in like Saudi Arabia, for example. So you show up and that same guy who was like, "Oh my God, I can't." Now the guy's like cocky. He's like, "Hey bro, what's up? I'll be over here." Yeah. I'm like, "You got attitude? What the hell's wrong with you?" So it's kind of funny to see, man.
As you see young comics like overseas or that are trying to emulate you remember there's a whole wave of guys trying to be like Dane Cook at one point, then
Sure.
Chappelle. But do you see that at all?
I think young comics in general, myself included, I think when you start, you try to emulate whoever you looked up to at first. I mean, very rarely do you see a comedian come out and go, "I'm completely unique and different." You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's once you get your voice, you start to, and that takes like 5 to 7 years of getting up 5-10 times a night. So, I mean, a week. But it's I'm not bothered by seeing some guys. A lot of times I just have conversations with some guys and I'm like, dude, like, try to start talking about your own stuff, rather than just like vague material that deals with just the Middle East. Talk about your own personal experiences. And ultimately it's just stage time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately a lot of these guys still don't have access to it.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
Would you say that podcasting is a new form of stage time?
What's great about podcasting? I'll tell you something about stand-up. I always say is like therapy. If you can find places where you can just get up and talk about stuff that's on your mind. That's why I love like the Comedy Store on Tuesday night, because there's no pressure to kill. It's usually a smaller audience, and you're able to work out some stuff. So I think the more you can put yourself in situations where you just talk and you're talking with other guys that are like like-minded, I think that you come up with stuff. I've come up with so many like bits that I should work on just from doing radio interviews, and I'm like, oh my God, why don't I put that in? Just yesterday I was talking about this. This is true. Like I was talking about how, being of Iranian descent, being Iranian and having kids. My wife's Indian, and I'm trying to teach the kids Persian because I want them to speak Persian. But the problem is in my house, my wife speaks English. We have a nanny that's Guatemalan. She speaks Spanish. It's impossible for me to teach them Persian because, it's just, I'm outnumbered. So what I decided to do, this is true, I was like, maybe I'll just find some Persian books and read them these like kids books, you know what I'm saying? And they could learn that way. And the problem I found was that a lot of Persian books, I think because, a lot of these other cultures come from a lot of struggle. So a lot of these kids' books have sad endings. So like you'll be reading to your kid, you'll be like, and then the fish died. And you're like, shit. And your kid's like, what's death? You're like, fuck. Forget it. Let's just read Dr. Seuss. It's like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's this thing. And I was like, why don't I talk about that on stage? Because I think that there's something there of trying to teach your kids this language and like running into these things, like, so that was something that just came up yesterday, and I started trying it out on stage. So I think the same thing with podcasting. And then when you sit there and talk like this, eventually you go, oh wow, maybe I should work that out a little bit. And in a way, you work it out on these podcasts as well.
Yeah. Now you were, when did you move to Los Angeles?
I moved to LA in '93. I went to UC Berkeley, then I came down to Los Angeles. My family had moved down to LA from Northern California. I moved down to go to UCLA. I was going to get my PhD in political science. One light just went out, ladies and gentlemen. That's okay. Right. We'll move on. High tech. So went to UCLA to start a PhD program in poli-sci. And I'd been wanting to do acting and stand-up since I was a kid, but coming from immigrant parents, they want you to be a lawyer, doctor, or an engineer. So they had convinced me to go this other route. And while I was in LA, I basically dropped out of my PhD program and started pursuing acting again, and that's kind of how it all went about.
That's such a frightening existence. And I can kind of understand, because my parents were geniuses. My mother graduated school in like a year. College. My dad was a professor of architecture. My sister graduated Kent State in 3 years and just left to get the hell out of Ohio to go to Greensboro. And I was horrible at school. So was there a lot of pressure? Like, I mean, those are three. You don't just kind of wander into engineering. You don't wander into being a lawyer.
Listen, it's a cultural thing. It wasn't like either one of my parents was a lawyer or a doctor or engineer, none of that stuff. But in their minds, I think it's a cultural thing. Like, you have to have a job that's respectable. They don't even understand how does a comedian make a living? Like, how does that even work? How does an actor make a living? They don't know. And it's tough enough, like...
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Me too.
Yeah. It's tough enough, like, being, American and growing up in this culture and going, my son wants to go for his passion, I'm going to support it. It's another whole world when you come from an immigrant background, because immigrants, like I said, they fled another country, came to this country, brought their money, and they're trying to do something to give their kids a better education.
Right.
And they want their kids to come out with a secure, some secure background, some secure occupation. And they don't understand this whole thing of like, I want to pursue my dream. They're like, dreaming is for sleep, You know what I'm saying? Wake up and go to the office, So yeah, it was a battle, but I learned to like, I was the oldest son growing up, and so my dad would always tell me, I had two younger brothers, he'd always tell me I had to take care of my brothers and stuff. So I was a little more mature for my age, and so at a certain point, I started kind of letting them know what I wanted to do. And they kind of gave up on pushing me a little bit.
Now, you did well in school because I am guessing because you were going for your PhD.
Yeah, I was going for my PhD. I did pretty well in school. And, it was just this thing where, like I said, I was supposed to, my mom wanted me to be a lawyer. And it was funny, like I would tell her I want to be a comedian. And she's like, I think I heard you say lawyer. And I was like, no, I said comedian.
You sure you didn't say lawyer?
You said lawyer. I heard lawyer. What's funny is she would actually, I'm not kidding, she actually at one point she said, why don't you just become a lawyer and just when you're in court, tell jokes. It's good. That's a good compromise. You can be the funny lawyer. I don't know if I'm going to win a lot of cases, Mom.
He lost, but he was hilarious.
Yeah. What a funny loser. But then, so what happened was I went from lawyer, then my junior year in college, I went and studied abroad in Italy. And there was this professor, I fell in love with what he was doing. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So if I become a professor, it's still respectable, but it's not one of these office jobs. And in a way, I'm in front of an audience. I go, that's like a good compromise. So I came back, told my mom, and she started freaking out. She's like, no, there's no jobs for professors. I'm like, how do you know about jobs for professors? She's like, I just know the market. I don't know how she knew it.
The market.
So then I dropped out of that, and she thought I'd lost my mind. And then at that point, my mom and my grandmother started recommending things for me to do just as a backup. Because they came from a revolution, and they were like, in case there's a revolution, you should find a trade that people will need You know, like maybe become a mechanic. Or my mom would base her suggestions on the last person who came to our house to fix something. I swear, so like they'd come to like, you know, like this guy came to fix a washing machine. She's like, you should be a washing machine fixer guy. You know, that guy just charged me $75 1/2 hour. It's good money, you know.
That's great money.
So I was like, you went from lawyer to washing machine fixer guy? I'm like, don't you have aren't there other middle?
Is there that part of you now that you've made it in stand-up comedy? You're like, I told you so.
No, my mom, listen, man, my mom continues to give me suggestions about things to do. And you realize, listen, at a certain point, when you're a kid, you listen to your parents and other adults because they're bigger than you, and you figure they know what they're talking about. Then you grow up and you realize they don't know shit.
Right.
You know, and so that's a good light bulb moment when you realize, like, my mom never, you know, had that kind of a career or anything. Like, so I can't, like, she'll come to me sometimes and give me suggestions. Like, she's like, recently, this is one of her suggestions. She's like, because I was on this TV show called The Knights of Prosperity, which was a bunch of guys down and out on their luck in New York City who decided to rob Mick Jagger.
What channel was this on?
This was on ABC, like in 2006 or 2006. It was on ABC. It was me, Donald Logue, Sofia Vergara, like these other people that you wouldn't know. But it was this funny show. And it was on for a little bit, and then it got canceled.
Was Mick Jagger involved?
Mick Jagger did a cameo in the pilot. He was hilarious. Anyway,
great.
But what's funny is now, ever since then, Sofia Vergara has gone on to Modern Family, and she's a superstar. So my mom the other day, like, is telling me, she's like, you know, you should think about switching your agents because Sofia is a superstar and you are still, you know, doing clubs, you know, and I think you should, you know, your agents should do something about that. I'm like, Mom, Sofia's this beautiful Latina. I'm like, a totally different category. And you don't even know how this works. She's like, no, just tell your agents, either get me a show or I'm going to, you know, she's like, her suggestions are totally without merit. And I was like, okay, Mom, thanks a lot. Thanks for your recommendation on how I should run my career. She's like, you should get with a good agency. I'm with CAA. I'm like, they're the top agency, Mom. What do you want?
What do you want?
She's like, you should get with a better agency. I'm like, I can't. She's like, let me be your agent.
That is the
Be my
greatest when
agent.
people give you the most obvious advice.
Oh, yeah.
I had a bit that was a closer for a while. I was closed on it. It was like, the closer. That's why it's the closer. My wife literally looked at me in the face like, you should make every bit the closer. Oh, that's great. Thanks for the heads up on that.
Thanks, honey.
So you're saying I should be as funny as the last bit throughout my act? Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, honey.
You know what you should do? You should get in those Hangover movies.
Exactly, yeah.
You
know
should
what?
star in that.
Yeah, you know, you should be Batman. I'm not sure. Just go tell them. They might not hear. You never know. Have you tried it?
Like show business is a big high school.
Just
you
show
bump
up,
into somebody.
right?
It kind of is.
Hey, Chris Nolan, how you doing, man? Listen, I'm just wondering. I thought maybe I should be Batman. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there.
My mom said I'd be a great Dark
My
Knight.
mom thinks I should do it. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm just running it by you.
Do you ever get people say that you look like Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine?
I think I've gotten a little bit of that. There's a couple of guys, all us bald dudes. I used to have a goatee. I just shaved the goatee. I'll tell you why I shaved the goatee real quickly. There's a story to that.
Yeah.
What happened was pilot season is on right now where they're casting the new TV shows out of LA. And it used to be a few years ago that there weren't like as many movie stars doing TV. So when you go out on an audition,
You look like a Persian Ted Alexandro.
Exactly. Yes, that's me. And no, but you would. It used to be a few years ago when you go out, they would. There wasn't that as many movie stars doing TV, so you go out and like sometimes you go out for the lead, sometimes you go out for the second guy, whatever. So, but it was kind of it felt attainable. Now you go out and there's like all these movie stars that are now doing like Kevin Bacon and you know, like Eddie Murphy's doing something now. He's gonna be they're doing a reboot of Beverly Hills Cop and he's gonna make a cameo. Robin Williams. I mean, it's crazy. All these people are doing stuff again. So you go out and it's like usually only the best friend, and it's always written as like the schlubby or the the schlubby best friend, and it's always written for basically a white schlubby dude. It's but written for like the Hangover, not the Hangover guys, the guys from 40-year-old. What's the name?
Oh, the
Jonah Hill.
Jonah
Those types,
Hill.
the Jonah
Yeah.
Hill types.
Yeah.
So you go in as a bunch of Jonah Hill types,
Yeah.
and it's like written like that. And I'm sitting there looking in this room. And I'm looking, I'm like, I would cast these guys. And I had my goatee going at the time. And I go, I know I'm walking in. They're like, this guy doesn't look like the schlubby best friend. He looks like Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah.
You can't have Muammar Gaddafi be the best friend, you know? So I decided to shave this just so they could see me a little differently.
Right.
And it hasn't worked, but
Yeah.
still.
You should audition for Dave the Cop on Sullivan and Son. Take
Yeah,
his role
that's
away.
right.
That's Sullivan's. How cool is that, man?
It's awesome, man.
That Steve Byrne is one of the nicest guys.
Dude, I mean, I grew up. We both went to Kent State University here.
Okay.
And I met Steve before comedy, and we were like frat brothers back in the day. And he was like,
was he at Kent State?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's right.
Okay.
So we were going to school, and then he got me into comedy. He started comedy in New York, and as things gone on, we'd work the road a lot. He'd let me come out, open up for him, and he was always like, "Dude, if I ever get a show, I'm gonna put you on it." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. That's nice." I never would ever hold anybody to that. That's
Right.
ridiculous. Well, he gets the show, and I'm just this dopey comic living in Cleveland. He's like, "Hey, I got a part for you.
Awesome.
Want to come on?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You mean there's like 5 million actors per square inch out there, and you're gonna let me just walk onto a Hollywood set
awesome.
and do? I mean, it's a couple lines. It's not
Yeah.
even acting. It's I remembered 2 lines and repeated them.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's a million people in, you could drop. Whatever. You could touch an actor by
Yeah.
spitting on one.
Yeah.
And he let me do that. And I was blown away. And he's
Steve-
letting me come back again to do it.
Steve's one of the nicest guys, and I love that story because, ultimately, a lot of comics don't realize this. A lot of comics are very competitive, and they're like, if you're following me, I'm going to destroy the crowd so that you get buried.
Right.
And, if you think about the evening is a full show. So if we have a good show overall, people are going to leave and remember that night, and we'll all do well. If you do it in a way where you're trying to bury me and make it so that I don't do well, it's going to affect the whole night in a way. And a lot of comics don't realize that your success is my success. Because if you and I can be friends now, and we can come up together, and we remember those nights when we're killing together, hopefully it will be a situation like a Steve Byrne situation where the guy that makes it, if it's not you, the guy remembers you and goes, "Hey, bro, remember we went through the trenches together? I got a part. Come and do it."
Right.
And I love that. That just happened to me on Whitney's show, where I know Whitney from the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And they just called me up and they said, "Hey, we have a part of a doctor. It's just a regular straight doctor. I was the straight man in the show, but like, you want to do it?" I said, "Sure." And it was such a cool feeling to go on that set. And there was Whitney. There was Chris D'Elia. The writer of the episode was Owen Smith. These were all Comedy Store guys.
Right.
And it felt so good to be there with all that.
Yeah.
So that's a good story, man.
When you get a role like that, is there a part of your brain that goes, "Thank God I don't have to go on the road for a couple weeks now"?
Absolutely. Listen, man, I'll tell you, having the kids right now, I've been trying to end up on a show that could keep me in town, and I'll be honest, I've the past few years, I've done pilots that look like they're going to go, they didn't go. Just this past year, I sold a show to CBS. We wrote the script, didn't go past the script.
Oh.
And it's a really tough road. People don't realize how hard it is to end up on a hit show on TV. It's almost impossible.
It's like I saw the process from start to finish with Steve, and the only way I could describe it is it's like you won the lottery to try to win the lottery again.
Absolutely.
The statistical improbability of getting something on air, and then. Oh, by the way, now that I'm on in the summer, I'm just competing with the Olympics.
Yeah.
Just the Olympics.
No, it's constant. Exactly what you just. That's a great way to put it. It's like you win the lottery, and then you win the next lottery, and then the next lottery, and and it's just on and on and on and on. Like I said, I was on that show. I've been on like 3 or 4 shows that got canceled. I've been on pilots, and what happens is you go through the struggle. Let's say when you sell a show, I've sold 2 shows now to CBS based on my stand-up. They probably buy 30 or 40 scripts in the fall. Out of those 30 or 40. They'll turn 10 of them into pilots. Out of those 10, they'll pick 3 of them to go to air. Out of those 3, 1 might survive and actually get a viewership. So it's just impossible. And so you continue to try. I was just listening to an interview Brian Regan did on WTF, and he's a very successful comedian. And he was telling Mark Maron how he's had 3 or 4 shows that they tried to do around him, and how it just didn't go anywhere. And you just got to keep going, And part of you also says, let me try to create my own stuff beyond the networks doing it. Like I did I wrote a short that's online. It's called My Two Worlds. Go Home Arab, and it's on I have a YouTube channel, YouTube/Maz Jobrani, and it's me, Ian Edwards, and Ahmed, and it's a short that I put up, and I want that to be the pilot of a whole series I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's something that's great because then I can get with my buddies like you're doing with Steve. I get with my buddies in a smaller venue and just create our own shorts and put them online. And nowadays, it seems like that kind of stuff is leading to shows. You know what I'm saying? It's almost you have to prove it online.
It's like what Louis is doing over in FX. I mean, he somehow bypassed everything.
Yeah.
And even with podcasting, I'm going around radio to do this, and everyone's just trying to figure out how to maneuver past these executives. And
and you have to continue to do that. You have to be, you have to put it out because at the end of the day, it's about having fun. If you're not having fun, then forget it. You know, like I've written this movie called Jimmy Westwood, American Hero. It's like a Middle Eastern Pink Panther.
Oh.
And I'm getting ready to make it, and I've been trying to get it made for several years, but I was trying to get money from like independent money. Then we met with some production companies. Nobody was seeing the vision. So recently we did a Indiegogo campaign, like a Kickstarter campaign, and we raised over $100,000.
Oh wow!
And that helped us get some other investors excited about it, and we've got other investors coming on board to get to $500,000, and we're going to shoot it ourselves this year. 18-day shoot, just bang it out.
Oh, that's
great.
great.
And I can't wait because it's going to be so much fun to just show up every day to do this thing that you wrote for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And you have to, man. You have to because I can't wait for the TV show to come around because I don't know when it's going to come. You know?
Does being diversified, like, with acting, producing movies, does it make your stand-up more fun? Because I'm just recently trying to figure out how to be in sketches, working with Chad on a TV show and stuff. And it's like before, I was starting to get to the point where I was starting to hate stand-up. Like something I gave up a real job to do. Something I tattooed on my body. I'm like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I was starting to hate it because I was depending on it for my existence.
Yeah, listen, what it is this. One thing is once you start creating other stuff, you realize that all the work you've put in the past several years as a stand-up, you've been writing your material for your TV show. You've been writing your material for your book. It's all there. When I went out to pitch the show last year, I wasn't sure what the show was going to be about. So I started talking to this writer, and he's like, "What's been going on in your life?" I started telling him, and suddenly I was telling him stories about like going out with my kid, like my son, and doing things to make him tired. So like I took him to a basketball class. That when you have a young kid, your whole goal is just make him tired. That's all you do all day. I took him to a basketball class, and the teacher was Russian. It ended up being like this serious class, and the kid ended up coming back crying. It was crazy, but
that's a good premise.
It was so I'm telling them these stories, and that's the kind of stuff that made it into the pitch that we went into. So every time we go to the pitch, I would start telling my stories, the stories of the king. All this stuff would come out, and the executives were totally into it. And so you've been writing all this stuff, and you can grab and put this stuff in, and it's this great feeling where you go, oh shit, it's all kind of intertwined. And the other thing is great when you realize, wow, I could take that bit and turn it into a funny short. You know what I'm saying? And there's so much fun when you do that because you're elaborating on the bit. You know.
Right.
So definitely, it's great, and it just exercises another part of your brain.
You know what you should do? You should be Batman.
I should be Batman.
Well, Maz,
watch for the next one.
I appreciate you coming down. You're on the Twitter at Maz Jobrani.
You got to spell that out.
MazJobrani.
Yes.
And MazJobrani.com. What else you got coming up?
I'm just touring a lot. People can see my dates at MazJobrani.com. You can check out JimmyWestwood.com, like the words Westwood, but with V. VESTVOOD. JimmyWestwood.com. And there's a whole bit about like how we're making this movie and what we're trying to do. So look for that hopefully next year, man.
People can Google you.
Google me if you like. And my special's on Showtime right now. It's called Maz Jobrani, I Come in Peace. It's on demand on Showtime.
Oh, before we go, I saw a little bit of your special. You got the Iron Sheik in the beginning.
That was the old special.
That's the old special.
That was the Brown and Friendly special.
I'm fascinated with the Iron Sheik. How do you know the Iron Sheik?
Let me tell you about this story. The Iron Sheik, what happened was a few years ago, I met these two young guys out of Toronto who managed the Iron Sheik. And they told me, they said, listen, if you ever need the Sheik.
By the way, follow this guy on Twitter. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He's so great.
Yeah.
Watches the NBA.
Those are the guys who run the Twitter page. So they told me, they go, if you ever need the Sheik for anything, let us know. And so I'm getting ready to shoot my Brown and Friendly special. And I thought of the cold open. I said, you know what would be fun is if I'm like backstage getting ready to go on stage and I freak out and I decide I can't go. And out of nowhere, the Iron Sheik just pops up. And he just starts, reaming me right there. So
Just Google Chic interviews.
son of bitch.
Yeah, exactly. So it was funny because my last name is Jobrani, and you know wrestlers use the term jabroni.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and it was the funniest thing because Sheik is out of his mind. And we told him, I said, listen, Sheik, when you pop up, you're gonna say, Maz Jobrani, you know, don't be an asshole, you know, get out there and do your thing. So we start, and you know, you can't really give him a script. He kind of goes. So he comes over and he's like, Maz Jabroni. And I'm like, Jobrani. He goes, Jabroni. I go, Jobrani. He goes, what am I, a school teacher? Get the fuck out of here. It was the funniest thing in the world. And the other thing, let me just tell you a quick other story, is they told me, the guys who manage him, they told me, listen, the Sheik is older right now, so he has trouble traveling. So when you get his ticket, please make sure you get a direct flight from Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta. Please get a direct flight from Atlanta to LA.
Oh, so you flew him out?
I flew him out.
Oh, wow.
And I told the production team, I said, listen, let me handle the ticket because I don't want anyone messing this up.
Yeah.
It's the Iron Sheik. I respect this man. He's a fellow Iranian.
Yes.
And he's old. And his managers say he might get lost. So let's make sure we do it right. I book his flight on American Airlines. Now, I've been flying American Airlines for the past, 6, 7, 8 years, like consistently. I've never had a call from American saying that a flight's been canceled. The night before the Sheik's about to fly, I get a call from American. Your flight from Atlanta has been canceled. There's a new flight that leaves from another gate half an hour later. And I'm like, okay, I got to get this information to the Sheik before he travels because he's old, he's going to get lost. I start looking to call the managers. I realize I don't have their phone number. Then I'm like, I don't have their email. I don't know what I did, but I've misplaced it. I'm dropping the ball. I'm like, shit. So I'm looking for their information. And then I'm like, what else can I do? I go, you know what I could do? I could call the Atlanta airport at the time when he's supposed to be there and ask them to page him on the PA system,
Right.
and I don't even know if they do that anymore. They used to have the PA.
page the Iron Sheik?
Exactly, and I'm like, and I don't even know what his real name is. So I'm like, what am I going to be like? Can you page Mr. Sheik? And they'll be like, paging Mr. Sheik, paging Mr. Iron Sheik, and then I had this vision of like the Iron Chef picking up. This is the Iron Chef. No, Sheik, the Sheik, wrong guy. But we tracked him down. And he got there on time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's online. You could actually watch that online. You got your website?
My website, mazjabrani.com, and that's it, man. I'm all over the internet.
That's awesome. What about you, Dalton? What do you got coming up?
No, I'm doing this comedy festival in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the Gilda Radner Festival.
Oh.
You win nothing in this competition. And then from there, I'm going to be driving out to Los Angeles to play Officer Dave in Sullivan's Son.
Oh, there you go, guys.
Nice.
This was a great
Excited.
conversation.
You
I
don't
appreciate
fly, you drive?
Well, the way I got to be out there for, I guess it works this way. They tape in 3 or 4 week increments, and then there's 2 weeks off between.
Oh, okay. You
So
won't
I'll
have your
drive
car.
out there, have a car, and then on the off weeks, I'll jump on a plane, fly home so I can hang out with my wife.
Okay. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
But at some point, I got to drive back, and I'm not, believe me, as a guy who drives a lot, I'm not looking forward to it.
yeah.
It's going to suck.
Yeah.
You should fly him out like you did the Sheik.
I'll fly you out of the Sheik. Yeah, no
There
problem.
it is. All right, guys.
Right on.
Thank you so much for coming up. For the people that are here,
Thank you.
Maz is going to be at Hilarities this weekend if you guys want to go see him. I'm Chad Zumock, at Chad Zumock on Twitter, at Ryan Dalton. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Sit down. Get your shoes on. Sit down, Zumock.
I've got at least one pair of good shoes in the back of the closet somewhere.